This is an open letter to my Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, of the United Kingdom. Mein Führer, Starmer! I am a historian, and I come from a certain town in the north of England. You may have heard of it, because it's Southport. I was shocked and dismayed to see the attack on the children of my hometown, and so concerned am I by your poor handling of this situation that I decided to make this video dedicated to calling out the fascist state of this country. Here are the flowers that were laid by the people from all over the United Kingdom, a testament to the feeling of sorrow that has washed over this once fine nation, a nation you have systematically pillaged. Dear Alice, we will miss you so much. You were so brave, sticking up for people and fighting for what's best. I hope you will always be happy. You will always be loved, and you were the best. Lots of love, Ellie. Lord, may your comfort and your presence be evident in this town. Come by here to those whose lives have been ripped apart. Come by here, and may your mercy fall like the rain. Someone's grieving, Lord, come by here. Someone's hurting, Lord, come by here. Oh Lord, come by here. Knife crime across the country is through the roof. Gun crime remains a problem. The R-ing of women has skyrocketed. The public sector has turned the public streets into a cesspool of criminal activity and closed down shops. The people have been disarmed, and the police only turn up if you say something naughty on Meta Facebook. They may even arrest me for this. The people feel unsafe. We're overworked, overtaxed, underpaid and underwater. Inflation caused by the Bank of England has eaten away at our wallets. There seems to be no end in sight. And the working class people, the people who voted for you, Starmer, have had enough.
How many more children have died on our streets, Prime Minister? How many more children? How many more children, Prime Minister? Are we going to do something?
Time to change, Starmer.
Come on, needed. How many more children? Is it mine next?
We're going to stand up for our children. That.
Bye-bye. Got your photos, off you go. Make a real change, Prime Minister. Get something. Make a real change! Get our children! Go away!
I've just found out my friend's 9-year-old daughter was killed.
You're not wanted!
Scumbag! The person I've held as a child and
Who said it was for Who was it?
That poor girl got stabbed 7 times.
It was nice to see you flee from the scene of the crime in your Starmgeschütz. It was also nice to see a lot of people around the country standing up against the government.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. We are hurt, sad, angry, but we are not broken. This gives us more strength, make us more stronger to fight for our country.
We will not kneel, we will stand tall. Today we are going to Downing Street to protest in peace, to show my anger and my pain to the authorities. Are you going to join me?
Are you going to join us? Join us on 10 Downing Street,
7 p.m.
7 p.m.
today. God bless Great Britain.
God bless.
But Das Starmer said all the protesters were far right. Does this person look far right to you, Mein Führer? Does his wife look far right as well? What about now? Look at this guy say what an absolute honour it was to meet two lovely people. Far right, apparently. Are you still sure that these are the far right, Starmer?
Do we look like righters?
women, handicapped people here. We have to treat it like a criminal here, and criminals are roaming around freely with machetes, and you are here in the right gear to stop us? No, it's not right. It's not right. With the law-abiding citizens, our kids are being killed, and we are being stopped. No, system is failed. They are failed.
Tommy!
They are failed. You failed us. No more. No more. No more. This can't be keep going on, and you stop us in the right gear. That we are criminals. We are not criminals. I need to save my kids.
What about this guy, Starmer? Does this guy look far right to you?
Democracy, not mobocracy. Stop the boats and mass migration. Safer streets, not machete madness. Pluralism, not failed multiculturalism. Integration, not subversion. National unity, not divided diversity. Good governance, not two-tier police. Britain with British values, not toxic identity politics. A united kingdom. Does all that make me far right, Prime Minister?
Here he is again.
And I think the antidote of this slippery slope of multiculturalism is pluralism. A clear set of defining values that form a core of overarching shared national identity. Now, whatever the faith, whatever the background, whatever the ethnicity, whatever the origin, it should be nation first, flag first. But you know, more than that, I think it's a sense of belonging, sense of identity, and a sense of pride that our nation provides for each and every one of us.
Obviously, he's a super Nazi, isn't he, Starmer? Well, let's look at this picture as well, Starmer. I'm Donna, a mum of two beautiful mixed-raced girls. Their safety and their rights are paramount to me, and according to Keir Starmer PM, that makes me a far-right thug. Hashtag far-right thugs unite. Yeah, this lady is definitely far-right, Starmer. According to two-tier Keir, I'm far-right. So be it. Far-right thugs unite. This lady says, I'm the daughter of an English father and a Filipino immigrant mother who has integrated fully into the British way of life. Two-tier Keir thinks I'm far-right because I care about kids being harmed, a dangerous knife culture and two-tier policing. Hashtag far-right thugs unite. We've got a priest here saying it's time to take a stand. This is a priest, Starmer. Is he far right, Starmer? I would play the video, but it's 8 minutes long, so I'll not do that. But look at this man, Keir. According to Keir Starmer, I'm a far-right thug. I'm an ex-police officer with a chief constable's commendation for attempting to save a Muslim man's life in very difficult circumstances. Hashtag far-right thugs unite. There are loads more of these, Mr. Starmer, loads of them. Too many to possibly read out to you, Mr. Starmer. So, are the people in all your Labour strongholds across Britain all far right, Mr. Starmer? Because it's Liverpool, Manchester, Sunderland, and many other Labour strongholds that seem to be rioting, Mr. Starmer. And if all the people who voted for you are far right, then what does that make you, mein Starmer? What does that make the Labour Party, Adolf Starmer? The actual issue here is that our streets are unsafe. Yes, some people are trying to make this about race or religion. You certainly are, as a way to deflect the authorities from doing something about the issue. But you've got a problem with me, mein Starmer, because I'm a historian of the Third Reich. I've got an entire catalogue of videos exposing the National Socialists, Fascists and Marxists for their racist nonsense. I've converted Nazis away from National Socialism, which is why the Nazis call me Jewish names, mein Starmer. So calling me far-right isn't going to work, mein Starmer. Don't even try to play the far-right card with me. But doing what I do know what a Nazi looks like when I see one, mein Reichskommissar. So, for me, this is not about race or religion. I don't care about any of that. I care about the safety of our streets. I care about fairness and justice for the people who have been hurt and are hurting. I care for the little girls the state has failed time and time again. And I think that the National Socialist Nazi Labour Party only put Labour in the name to trick the workers. It's good to see a lot of workers starting to wake up and realise this. And if this truly was a democracy, mein Starmer, instead of plugging your ears, surely you should be listening to what the people have to say.
Save our kids! 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 Save our kids!
Just to point out, not only are there black people in the crowds, but there's also an Israeli flag flying next to an England flag. Are the far-right fond of the Jews now, Starmer? And of course, Mr. Starmer doesn't want to save the kids, because he's part of the problem. Don't forget Keir Starmer protected Jimmy Savile. It was under your watch, Mr. Starmer, that Crown Prosecution Services let the man loose. Yes, the nonsense of the BBC and the lamestream media who covered for Savile in the first place are now trying to protect you so as to protect themselves, but the man in charge is the man responsible, isn't he, Starmer? And the government, the state, and the criminal justification system in charge also takes responsibility, doesn't it, Starmer? And Starmer, riddle me this. The police ruled out terrorism within an hour or two of the attack on Southport. And since you can only rule something out if you know what the true motivation is, that means Misery Side Police knew within a few hours of the attack who this person was and why he did what he did. They then refused to say anything of any substance and falsely labelled everyone far right for questioning them, resulting in a backlash that was targeted at a certain religious minority. They then brutally suppressed the riots more so than they've done with other riots, like at Leeds. And I'm actually on the side of the Leeds rioters, just to be clear, because I'm actually against socialist services. But this deliberate hiding of the facts by the authorities led to a further heightening of tensions, as did the false accusation that the EDL even exists, which it doesn't. It was disbanded a decade ago. Only 3 days later, after the first two riots, did they finally reveal who the murderer was. And my question is, had the government told us that he was a Christian in the first 24 hours, would the attack on the Southport Mosque have ever happened? Had we the people known he was a Christian, as you well knew, then the mosque may never have been attacked. And thus, mein Starmer, you and the UK government are responsible for the current backlash. At Southport, this man came brandishing a flick knife to the vigil to do even more harm to my hometown as it was mourning the loss of our children. As Misery Side Police reported, a 32-year-old man from Standish was arrested on suspicion of possession of a bladed article and taken into custody. Why was this man in my hometown in the first place, Starmer? What was his agenda, Starmer? This was before the Southport riot, Starmer. So why haven't we heard much about this man since, Starmer? Do you think the deliberate downplaying of this event by the police and lamestream media may have contributed to the feeling that you're trying to cover everything up, Starmer? Here is the mosque that was attacked during the Battle of Southport, and I'll point out that this battle was ultimately won by the people. 6 arrests and 50-odd police officers hurt says that the Scousers got the upper hand, even if they didn't reach their objective. Well, what's interesting is that this mosque sits opposite a Chinese chippy. I've been down to the area and this Chinese chippy wasn't even touched. None of the windows were smashed. So, isn't it incredibly strange how the racist thugs who are so far right and ultra-nationalist blah 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 didn't even touch a Chinese chippy that was right next to the mosque, Starmer. Especially since they were swarming around it and the police weren't protecting it, were they, Starmer? Yes, they did smash up another shop down the road to get beer, and they knocked down walls to get bricks. But they didn't smash a single pane of glass in this Chinese chippy. That's very strange, isn't it, Starmer? You'd think that these super racists would attack the Chinese too, but apparently not, Starmer. And it's funny how the state-funded media completely ignored this one, didn't they, Starmer? So, mein Führer, let's drop the race game, shall we? You and your comrades, your Volksgenossen, made it about the race when in fact it's about the government failing to protect the children from the criminals who wish to destroy us. These illegals are coming across the channel despite the people voting time and time again for the state to curb immigration. Worse, the state is also refusing to deal with these criminals. It is a fact that the Labour Party was in power in all the places that the little girls were being arred across this country for decades by multiple men. And in every single instance it was the Labour Party that turned a blind eye, because the Labour Party and the state as a whole is full of racist bigots who judge people by the colour of their skin. Let's look at these pictures, Starmer. I'm a concerned father, hashtag not far right, and I'm a concerned mother, hashtag not far right. Are mothers and fathers far right now, Mr. Starcy? Let's check Twitter, shall we, Mr. Starmer? You vile POS. Do something, or it's only going to get worse. The British public have had enough. But you're not listening, are you, Starmer? So instead of a new police division to combat knife crime, he creates a new police division to tackle people protesting about knife crime. Listen to what this woman in Hull says. Oh, and is this black guy a far-right racist, Starmer?
Across Europe, an increase in crime. In Ireland, it's a 50% increase in murder. In Sweden, 58% increase in sexual assaults and rapes by non-Swedish men. In Germany, a 92% increase in serious crime of newly arrived migrants. What we do need are some true statistics on crime, but nationality, not of the victims, but of the perpetrators. Did you know that 90% of these unvetted migrant men? Albania. Have you seen Albania lately? There are adverts and holiday brochures advertising holidays to Albania, and apparently you can get a return flight from Tirana, the capital, for only 28 quid. So why are all these Albanian men choosing to come and live in the UK, crossing a treacherous stretch of water when they can get such a cheap flight? And did you know that we have a company called Serco to thank, who are responsible for the invasion of Britain? They are facilitating, providing over 400 hotels around the country, but also the transporting of all these unvetted migrant men to all the towns and cities nationwide. Let's face it, after such a long, sometimes dangerous crossing on a dinghy, they're hardly going to walk to all their destinations, are they? Did anyone actually take time to consider how they actually get to all these various hotels? Did you know that when they arrive at their hotel, they're provided with the best halal food, the best medical care, and even given an allowance to live on? What about the people of the UK, who are unable to get doctors and hospital appointments? What about our young people starting out in life who are unable to get a home of their own? What about our elderly, now having their winter fuel taken away while these migrants keep warm in their hotels? This is all being funded out of our taxpayers' money. This mass immigration needs to stop. Our young people are being sacrificed to allow these undocumented strangers into our country. We do not know their intentions, their history, not even their real names. And Serco are allowing this to happen. So when your kids are too scared to walk down the street or go to the park, you know who to blame? Serco. yourself another question. Where are all the women and children? Surely if there was such a bad situation and a war going on, it's usually the women and children first policy. Whenever there's been a refugee stream at any point in history, it's those that can't fight that leave. The men stay to fight for their country. Have a look on a map and ask yourself, where are all these war-torn countries that are all these migrant men are fleeing from?
You have shown more hostility to the protesters than the man who butchered 3 young girls. Traitor. And the reason why, Starmer, is because you and all the parties, and the civil service, the criminal justification system, the social services, the police, the school teachers and the universities, all of the establishment, you're all racist bigots who judge people by the colour of their skin. You have bought into hateful racial ideologies. The government, the state itself, and all the political parties are racist, top to bottom. And it's not racist of me to call you out on your racism, Das Starmer. Britain does not have a far-right problem. Britain has a problem with a dominant liberal class that for years ignored legitimate concerns over economic injustice, crime and migration, and is now experiencing a blowback. And as people pointed out, this guy is a leftist. This is a trade unionist. So are leftists now far-right, Starmer? Now he's dealing with white people, Stalinist Starmer has finally found his spine. Labour hates the working class. Could have told you that years ago. Oh look, more people who are far-right. This guy definitely looks far-right to me. Let's have a listen, shall we?
Thank you for the pay rise. Thank you for the pay rise.
Should be going down though now. The country's such a fucking mess. Maybe you guys will have to turn to some crime to make them. We're not doing anything wrong. We're watching.
Peaceful protesters were being arrested.
You just run into me. You've just all. I've got a pacemaker. I've got a pacemaker. I've got a pacemaker. And they've just arrested me for walking up here.
No, to reach the section 35.
Oh, because of you want to do them any tighter?
That's why I'm trying to lock them so they can stop getting tight.
Well, actually, you're really tightening them.
Well, I'm not.
You really are tightening them and you're really making me... You what?
So can you relax?
You joking?
5 seconds.
Are you joking? I've never been arrested in my life.
Madam.
I have, don't you miss, don't you, I have never been arrested in my life. I'm 73 years old and I've come here because of them babies who's died and I'm being arrested.
You were crushing the peaceful protesters under your jackboot. You were silencing legitimate protests and arresting people outside Downing Street.
What would we be arrested for if we were to go in the road?
What would we be arrested for then? Breach of the section 14 of the public order. There are conditions imposed on this demonstration. We're not.
So certain for today, is it, yeah?
Yeah, yeah.
Right, okay.
It should be explained where you are allowed and where you're not allowed.
Can you tell me I've just arrived?
That's fine.
No road?
What about Palestine protesters? Do they get the same
treatment? I think that side of the road or just not in the road.
Not in the road? Okay. Is there a warning? Someone walks in there, do you warn them first or just take them?
Well, you've had your warning now. Yeah, if someone's in the road...
If it gets busy and someone's pushed in?
It's all been communicated to everyone in this area.
Okay. Yeah.
So if people breach that, then
okay.
Stick is being a fat long.
Yeah, fair enough.
You won't stop us anyway, give us what we want.
A few moments later.
Yep.
You're under arrest at the moment for breaching section 14 of the Public Order Act.
Sorry?
You're under arrest at the moment for breaching section 14 of the Public Order Act.
I haven't breached anything.
Okay, so you do not have to say anything, but it may harm the defence if you don't mention any questions.
Hey!
Anything you say, you know. I
Sorry,
appreciate
for
you
what?
holding that, mate.
Yeah, what have I done wrong?
Okay, I'll explain to you after.
I've stayed on the pavement. I've stayed on the pavement, mate.
I appreciate it. They wanted people off the pavement as well, so...
Yeah, I asked him, should I go? And you said stay there. You said you're okay for a minute.
At the moment you're under arrest, so let me deal with that, alright?
You did say to me I'm okay there, right?
I didn't personally, no.
No, when I said, why is he moving everybody?
Listen, under arrest, I've just been given instructions, alright?
Right.
Simple as, alright? I know you're calm, let you hold.
Yeah, I'm not going anywhere, mate.
Where's Jamie? Where's Jamie?
I wasn't told to move off the pavement, though. Yeah, I wasn't told to move off the pavement.
Everyone's dispersed off the pavement.
Oh, I'll go then, I'll go. I was on the pavement.
Mate, you're under arrest, mate, you're under arrest, mate.
Sorry? Okay. Where am I going? Okay.
It was for this reason, you once again silencing the people, that led to the riots across the rest of the country. The people do not feel as though you are listening to them, and you're not. You are censoring us, you are silencing us. The government's response here, and prior to this in the decades leading up to this, was clearly the catalyst for the riots.
We're mothers, we're because we're grandfathers and grandmothers. Knife crime is out of control. Something has to give. Seriously, you guys are dealing with it at the forefront. You have the ability.
But I will give you some credit, Mr. Starmer. You somehow managed to unite the Irish. This is incredible. Catholics and Protestants are quite literally marching shoulder to shoulder in Belfast, Northern Ireland, as they demand an end to mass immigration. When these two communities are putting their differences aside and coming together, you know you've messed up. This is literally a historic moment.
Stand down, hold! Stand down, hold! Stand down, hold! Stand down!
Yeah, pedos off our streets! Pedos out! Pedos out! 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 The news will tell you there was probably 100 people here. We beg to differ. Yeah! You the lads! Yeah! Look at this. That's a fucking beautiful thing, boys. Look at that.
As this man says, these two have been fighting my entire life, and then some. Congratulations, globalists. You've brought peace to an unending conflict by becoming the villains. I genuinely cannot believe that you managed to unite the Irish in their hatred of you. Like, what's next? Like, are the Welsh going to rise up because you tried to pass the killer off as a Welshman? Why don't you just do what your hero did and invade Poland? I mean, there's no reason not to at this point. But seriously though, people are up in arms, and you're not only ignoring them, but you're suppressing them. Yes, the sheeple might still fall for the propaganda, but the rest of us are seeing the overreach. Here you are sending in the stormtroopers to beat up the working class people in the Labour strongholds of Liverpool, Rochdale, Manchester, Huddersfield, Sunderland and so on. These are the Labour Party strongholds. These are your people, Starmer, and you're brutalising them, Starmer. They're upset not just for the girls murdered and stabbed in Southport, but for the children they've seen destroyed in their own towns and cities, as your party, your government, did nothing. You censor them. You give them no voice, and when they take to the streets, you crush the people complaining that you're not listening to them. Well, this reminds me of a quote. When I see an actual flesh and blood worker in conflict with his natural enemy, the policeman, I do not have to ask myself which side I am on. George Orwell. So, while you sent in the Gestapo to exterminate the workers who voted for you, the racist state police fled from the ethnic minorities in Leeds, or stood by and did nothing as our streets were smashed in other places. This has led people to say there's a racist two-tier system here in this country, where the government is judging people by the colour of their skin. You have been nicknamed Two-Tier Keir, and rightly so. The establishment is bowing down to an international racist Marxism, which is why the BBC has racial quotas. It judges people by the colour of their skin, which is racism. It's also why they covered for Jimmy Savile and all the others, because the racist and sexist bigots of the BBC don't care about the kids. Well, the people are asking something of you, Starmer. Do you think this is fair, Starmer? Do you like seeing the face of crying kids, Starmer? Because if you do, a lot of other people aren't happy with this, Starmer. These are the angry people of Rotherham, who watched their children get AR'd for multiple decades, while your party stood by and did nothing. They're beating back the police, and they're trying to destroy a migrant hotel, which is paid for by their own taxes, their own money. And the police are once again on the side of the groomers, who R'd and murdered the British children for over 40 years. Is it because the British police want this crime to continue? Because it sounds like they do, Mr. Starmer. Well, a lot of people aren't happy with this, Mr. Starmer. Expect more of this. There are 30 million working class people in this country. You're sending their money abroad, starving and freezing their elderly, allowing their children to be gang-R'd, blown up and murdered, whilst housing and feeding the people that do it. You've told the law-abiding British working class that going to the voting booth doesn't work. You've told them that peaceful protest gets them labelled as far-right. You've told them that towing the line, paying your taxes, voting and writing to your MP makes not a shred of difference, whilst you've kneeled like a female dog to a year of BLM rioters and fawning over community leaders, whilst the towns and cities our people built are burnt to the ground and our children are sacrificed to them. I hope this brutal, avoidable, senseless murder of these wonderful little girls is the catalyst for the people of this country to take no more S from you duplicitous, lying, globalist traitors. You said the rioters are all members of the EDL, the English Defence League, an organisation disbanded years ago. And yet you gave a speech where you came out to say you would crush them all.
Let me now turn to the actions of a tiny, mindless minority in our society.
Yes, the people who voted for you in the last election were the minority. You only got in because most people didn't vote, and they didn't vote because they've given up. 11 million voted for you, 38 million didn't vote for you. You and the Platos in Parliament are the mindless minority in our society. The Nazi Labour Party, the Commie-Servatives, the Lib Shills, people have started to realise that they're all the same and nothing ever gets fixed. You're all establishment shills.
Because in the aftermath of this attack, the community of Southport had to suffer twice. A gang of thugs got on trains and buses, went to a community that is not their own, a community grieving the most horrific tragedy, and then proceeded to throw bricks at police officers who just 24 hours earlier had been having to deal with an attack on children in their community.
BS. Misery-side police are full of Scousers too. They're not from Southport. They're from Liverpool. The riot in Southport was between two sets of Scousers. Plus, there were locals there too, I know there were. There were working class people from Liverpool, Formby, St Helens, Wigan, Preston, Blackburn and Manchester turning up in Southport to show their support. They're all Labour. They're all working class. And though I obviously do not want to see violence on the streets of Southport, I do want to say thank you to all the people who have shown more sympathy over this than the government or the police have. Thank you. And misery-side police do not care about the citizens of Southport. They don't turn up if your window gets smashed or if your shops get raided. They don't care about the community at all. Their priority is stopping speeding motorists and bar fights at the weekend, not protecting the community. They only defended the mosque so that you could pretend to be on the good side. The state police are there to protect the government, not the people. If you cared so much about Southport, you would form a separate Southport police force. But of course, that'll never happen. Just like you'll never let Southport be free from the vice-like grip of Sefton Council, Sefton Soviet, who have pillaged Southport for all they can get.
And so I've just held a meeting with senior police and law enforcement leaders where we've resolved to show who we are. A country that will not allow understandable fear to curdle into division and hate in our communities. and that will not permit, under any circumstances, a breakdown in law and order on our streets.
Okay, well, there were gangs out on the street, Mr. Starmer. Brandishing knives and machetes, Mr. Starmer. And your officers were doing nothing about it, Mr. Starmer. Why not, Mr. Starmer? Why are your officers allowing only one particular group of people to walk the streets with knives and weapons, Mr. Starmer? Could you explain that one to the children, Mr. Starmer? You even marched Antifa out, didn't you, Mr. Starmer? Liverpool patriots refused to fight Antifa. When the police realised their dirty trick didn't work, they marched Antifa away. Be careful, the government police are desperate to blame sovereign British citizens for everything.
Everyone back! Everyone back over here! Don't play their game! Don't play their game! You want violence! Peaceful protesters!
We've seen it time and time again in protests and riots across the Western world when the government brings out the Stalinist forces of hate and division, praises them, and then does everything they can to make their opponents look as bad as they can with their state-run and funded propaganda ministries. And I've got to call your media out on this. Goebbels' Ministry of Enlightenment, the BBC, Sly News, none of these were showing violence caused by one side of the coin. The focus is all on the other side. You were deliberately trying to make out that all of Liverpool was far right, that all of Huddersfield, Hull and Manchester were far right, and that is complete nonsense. So get it through your thick skulls. You're not fighting the far right, you're fighting the British working class and even some of the middle class as well. In a time of deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. And if you want a picture of the future, imagine a boot stamping on a human face forever. Here are the so-called anti-fascists being racist towards these Indians. We were provoked and threatened by far-left goons in Cardiff, just 2 of us against around 200. Despite their threats in the presence of police, the officers did nothing to intervene or protect us. We still stood tall and left with dignity. Shame on the 2-tier policing system that clearly shows authorities are unwilling to help those who want to raise their voices against injustice. And let's just listen to this.
Everybody loving me. Everyone loves me here. They love me. They love me. They love me. They love me.
Fascist scum off our street. 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 Where are you going? Fascist scum off our street. 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 Fascist scum.
They love me. They do love me.
Fascist scum off our street. Fascist scum off our streets. Fascist scum off our streets.
Antifa are full of racists, and the far left supports the abuse of racial minorities and the mass R-ing and murdering of children, because that's what the left is all about. Racism and the desecration of little girls. And they are so indoctrinated that they can't think. He was told to get off the streets, but when he was walking away, the far left lunatic asked, "Where are you going?" Why? What was he meant to be doing at this point? Was he walking away or not walking away? Getting off the street or not getting off the street? It doesn't make any sense. Plus, Mr. Starmer, these weren't rioting, were they? They were peacefully protesting, Mr. Starmer. And yet they got kicked off the street by the far left, Mr. Starmer. Could you explain any of this, Mr. Starmer?
This was a meeting to pull together our response. A response both to the immediate challenge, which is clearly driven by far-right hatred, but also all violent disorder that flares up, whatever the apparent cause or motivation. We make no distinction.
All of it? All of it? Really? You think any of the British people believe you when you say this, Starmer? Because they're not Osama bin Laden.
Crime is crime.
No, it isn't. Not in this country. The state police are racist bigots who judge people by the colour of their skin. This government and the entire state, top to bottom, is a quagmire of racism and sexism. And you're enabling certain types of people to commit crimes whilst punishing those who complain that you're not enacting the law equally. Crime is not crime in this country. The state is the criminal here.
And so to that end, I can announce today that following this meeting, we will establish a national capability across police forces to tackle violent disorder. These thugs are mobile, they move from community to community, and we must have a policing response that can do the same.
Again, completely clueless. This is just another excuse to implement more totalitarian fascist measures on the British people who have been silenced by their fascist government.
Shared intelligence, wider deployment of facial recognition technology, and preventative action, criminal behaviour orders to restrict their movements before they can even board a train, in just the same way that we do with football hooligans.
Mein Führer, are the concentration camps really necessary? How about just dealing with the criminals in society, which is what the so-called law system is meant to do? Have you considered that option, Mr. Starmer? Have you considered listening to what the people protesting and rioting are actually saying, Mr. Starmer? No. Instead of trying to address the problem, you're creating a Schutzstammful. Okay, well done. You're creating a British SS, but keep telling us that you're not racist.
And let me also say to large social media companies and those who run them, violent disorder, clearly whipped up online, that is also a crime. It's happening on your premises, and the law must be upheld everywhere.
The people are out protesting and rioting because they're being shut down and ignored. They're being censored and falsely accused of being far right. And it is for this reason that they're out on the streets. And your response is to nationalise the social media companies? You really just don't get it, do you?
That is the single most important duty of government. Service rests on security. And we will take all necessary action to keep our streets safe.
The people are up in arms because you've failed to keep the streets safe, Mr. Starmer. They're complaining that you're not serving the people, you're not securing our streets. In fact, the racist state is enabling the crimes and encouraging them to occur. And instead of dealing with the criminals, you're brutally smashing the protesters and rioters. And you may, in the end, treat the symptom. You may, in the end, stop this set of protests and riots from happening. But the cause of the protests and riots has not been addressed. And the more you crack down on the skulls of the British working class, the more conscious they will be that their government is the criminal that needs to be opposed. My dad was a truck driver. I'm from the working class. The last couple of years I've graduated into the middle class thanks to YouTube, and I'm not pretending to speak on behalf of the workers or the middle income earners, nor the people from Southport. There are many sheeple I know who love nothing more than to not think and bend the knee to whatever the talking box tells them. But the reason I am making this video is because you're so completely clueless as to what is going on that I'm fearful that this chaos that you're stoking is only going to get monumentally worse. you are going to cause a violent revolution against yourselves, at which point all bets are off. I don't want violence in the streets. I don't want gangs of thugs running about attacking each other. I don't want a new government to emerge that implements Fabian fascism, resulting in another killing fields of Cambodia. I want a peaceful resolution to this problem. But you're not listening. Neither is half the population. They're all so quick as to turn a blind eye to the men, women and children being destroyed by your failures, and label everyone far-right that they're essentially complicit in these crimes. And whether you agree with what these people are saying or not, at least listen to them. Here is a woman speaking, and I don't care if you agree or not, listen to what she's saying. You may or may not agree with her. But it looks to me, Mr. Starmer, that your racism and the racism of the entire establishment was the cause of this issue, and the people are calling you out on it. Are the millions of working class people far right now, Starmer? Is the whole of the north of England far right now, Starmer? Are the Conservatives, Liberals, middle class parents and so on, are they all far right? Or have you falsely labelled them as such because you're a moron? Is it racist to call you a racist, Mr. Starmer? No, it's not. And enough is enough. I don't want to see violence on the streets. I'd rather be a peaceful resolution to this. But unfortunately, I am seeing the footage and I'm seeing the blood already in the streets, and I can't help but think that it's the establishment's hands that are running red right now. And sadly, I don't expect the Starmhelm to listen. In fact, not only is he not listening, but other members of Parliament are not listening either. Here is a Labour Party Member of Parliament, Charlotte Nichols, saying, "Seeing a lot of chat about how it's not fair to call those rioting far right, and people making excuses for them. If you're doing Nazi salutes on the streets of Britain and engaging in violent disorder, you don't have legitimate concerns. And you're not a patriot. End of." And yes, you have spotted 2 Nazis. Maybe, because the guy on the left looks like he's pretending since he's laughing and holding up the wrong arm. But yeah, there's a handful of Nazis knocking about. But they are the tiny minority, perhaps a couple hundred at most. The vast majority of the people who are out on the streets are not Nazis, and you have branded them as such. But this is a ridiculous and inappropriate response to what's happening. For decades now, you have suppressed speech and ignored the voice of a large portion of the population. Your Marxist ideology brands every white person a racist Nazi, whilst you pretend not to be anti-Semites. You're judging people by the colour of their skin, supposedly in the name of diversity, which is just a new way of saying racism. And when people try to complain about this, you brand them all far right and say they don't have legitimate concerns. Really? The people are complaining that you're not listening to them, so you dismiss them and then act shocked that they take to the streets to riot. You're a moron. Tens of thousands of people are taking to the streets across the entire country, and they're not far right. When Oswald Mosley was knocking about, there was only a few hundred of them. Britain does not have a far right problem. We have a racist government problem. You are causing this backlash against you. You are stoking the flames and making the situation worse through sheer ignorance of what is actually going on, or deliberately. If you continue to turn a blind eye to the problem, more and more people will take to the street. Also, is this a black Nazi now? Is this a black Nazi? She says he's rightly been arrested, as these two and anyone else doing it should be. Right, so we now have far-right black Nazis on the streets, do we? Are you going to acknowledge that you don't understand what's happening at all? And let me ask you the question, why do you hate Nazis in the first place? If you're a bunch of Marxist anti-Semites, which is what your ideology is all about, why do you hate the Nazis? Is it because you're competing on the same ground? If you oppose Nazis when they look like this, but not when they look like this, then you're not anti-Nazi. And no, they're not anti-Nazi. They're just pretending they are to win votes. The Labour Party and the entire establishment hate the Jews, as evidenced by recent events, and as can be proven by simply reading their Marxist literature. Miss Nichols, your tone-deaf response is very disappointing. I'm not a Nazi. I'm not doing Nazi salutes. I'm not rioting. But I do want to see an end to the violence, which is why I'm making this video. You're completely off the mark here. And yes, there are a handful of Nazis in the crowds, amazing. But the majority are not far right. What you're looking at are the genuine concerns, the legitimate concerns of the British people. Be they working class, conservatives, liberals, the Irish, myself, because I'm none of the above. We do want equal treatment. We want peace on our streets. You, the racist establishment, have allowed violence on our streets for decades. And when the people try to complain about it, you ignore them, censor them, arrest them, or worse. Donna Jones is the Police and Crime Commissar for Hampshire and the Isle of Wight, and she released a statement on the 3rd of August 2024. Some have claimed it was false, but I read it at the time, and though it has been modified since, it still retains most of the stuff people have shared online. As Alex Armstrong states, "This is leadership. Donna Jones has put the Prime Minister and Home Secretary to shame. This one letter sums it up. I encourage everyone to read it, especially Labour MPs and government ministers. They won't, and clearly aren't, getting better advice anywhere else." She said, "The rioting and civil unrest across the country following the murder of 3 children in Southport on Tuesday has escalated to a worrying level. Police officers have been injured, buildings have been targeted because of those living in them or worshipping at them, and police cars and vans set on fire. Millions of pounds of damage has been done and more than 100 people have been arrested, with many more expected. Police stations are burning, police officers' annual leave has been cancelled, and riot police are dusting off their shields from Land's End to John O'Groats. The behaviour of some of those protesting has been extremely violent, highly distressing and absolutely criminal. This weekend, a number of protests are planned across the country and across political and ideological spectrums." Let me just read that again. Across political and ideological spectrums. That's right, this is not the far right. The announcement of the Prime Minister's new Waffen-SS has led to an accusation of two-tier policing, which has inflamed protesters who state they are battling to protect Britain's sovereignty, identity, and stop illegal immigration. Burning towns and cities and attacking the police is not the answer, so how do we stop it? I've spoken to people from both sides of the political spectrum, and the only way to stem the tide of violent disorder is to acknowledge what is causing it. Whilst the devastating attacks in Southport on Tuesday were a catalyst, the commonality amongst the protest groups appears to be focused on 3 key areas: the desire to protect Britain's sovereignty, the need to uphold British values, and in order to do this, stop illegal immigration. The growth of feeling across the country has mirrored, to a lesser extent, the rebellion to illegal immigration that has played out across France over the last 12 months. The government must acknowledge what is causing this civil unrest in order to prevent it. Arresting people or creating violent disorder units is treating the symptom and not the cause. The questions these people want answering: what is the government's solution to mass uncontrolled immigration? How are the new Labour government going to uphold and build on British values? This is the biggest challenge facing Sir Keir Starmer's government, and it's bitten quickly. As a national police leader and a police and crime commissioner, someone who has spent almost 2 decades representing the public, this is the clear message I want to put to the Prime Minister and Home Secretary this week. We all need to work together to stop this mindless criminal behaviour committed by a small number of people, whilst understanding the views of those attending rallies who feel strongly but don't cause disorder. Fantastic. At least someone is listening. She's not 100% here, but she's giving it her best, so hats off to her. But unfortunately, this slow response was far too late to stop the fighting from escalating. Now, while I totally understand the Muslim community for doing this, and I'm not criticising them for taking to the streets like this in response to the violence against them, I have to highlight this purely to show how unequal the government response has been. I can't show some of the attacks that some Muslims have been inflicting against white people across the country, or vice versa, because they're too horrific for YouTube. But look at the response here. How many members of the Muslim Defence League will be arrested in Stoke for openly carrying weapons? Will there be a special police force to tackle Islamic hate gangs? Will these thugs receive banning orders? Keir Starmer and Labour are spineless.
Where's Aaron? Where's Aaron? Up there! Up there! Up there! Where's Aaron?
No, come on, just move.
Where's Aaron?
Just run! Just go! I can't run! Out to Chris!
And if I walk down the street with a weapon, I get arrested. But because the government has decided that these particular people are exempt from the so-called law, they can get away with it. And I don't care what your reasoning might be, it's as simple as this. If you cannot implement the law on them, then don't implement it on me. If you're not willing to take their blades off them, don't take them off me. If they're allowed to walk around with a sword, I should be able to walk around with a sword too. And if you say, no, they get to walk around with weapons and you don't, that's racism. Now, obviously the Muslim Defence League is not a real thing, just like the EDL is not a real thing. But since the government is calling the English far-right EDL members without a shred of evidence, the people are calling them the MDL as a way to call out the BS. Of course, some sheeple are completely clueless, but anyone with half a brain can think through the logic. There's no such thing as the Muslim Defence League, you bad maths. Literally just another thing bigots have made up. Did it take you long to tie your shoelaces this morning, sir? If fascists are busting into rioting towns, they're going to meet pockets of resistance from people wanting to protect their communities. It's as simple as that. Yes, they are, which is why I don't necessarily blame them for this response. If the government causes the English to rise up, and the Muslims rise up to defend themselves, then it's understandable. However, you've missed the point. When the racist, fascist government does nothing for decades, and then the English rise up after being silenced, you send in the stormtroopers. But when the Muslims rise up, you hug them. Here are police officers in Blackburn joking and hugging one community while they systematically crush the other. There are loads of examples of this being posted, so look them up. It appears the Muslim Defence League, MDL, can roam the streets with machetes, hammers and 2x4 lumber and attack people unfettered. But police can intervene harshly against elderly and disabled people carrying placards. Does this seem right to you? And the question is, why aren't our police doing anything about this? What about this guy? Is he going to be arrested for carrying a machete? How about this crowd in Stoke? As a concerned citizen, I don't like seeing gang warfare on our streets. Is everyone here going to be arrested? And again, I'm only bringing this up as criticism against the government, not of the Muslim community. I want to see a peaceful resolution to this, and my concern is that the police and the government have implemented a two-tier system where white people and other minorities get punished, but others do not. That to me is government racism. It's not right. The government is at fault here because they are causing the problem. As someone else put, waiting for all the mainstream media to start telling us about the Muslim Defence League. Thus far. There is a legitimate concern here. Gang of 8 attacked 2 men wearing Union Jacks in Leeds. There's also other videos I won't show of brutal attacks with hammers and blades on white people in Leeds, and the police don't seem to be doing much. And I have family in Leeds. I have family in Leeds. And again, I'm not calling for persecution, I'm calling for law and order. I don't want to see the police stand by idly as one community hunts down another. I don't want to wake up one day to the news that my own family has been slaughtered while the police picked their noses. We cannot deny the evidence of our own eyes. Ordinary British people will not be silenced. Peaceful protest is the way. Enough is enough. When I was in the 7th grade, our teacher put on a video and told us to take notes. 10 minutes in, she threw the lights on and shouted at Stephen Webb Sladkey, telling him he wasn't taking notes and he should have been. But the thing was, Steve was taking notes. I saw it. We all saw it. The teacher asked if anyone wanted to stand up for Steve. A few of us choked out some words of defence, but they were immediately quashed. Quickly, we were all very silent. Steve was sent to the principal's office. The teacher came back in the room and said something like, "See how easy that was?" We were reading Anne Frank. I started to understand. I just thought now was a good time to share this story. Don't ever let anyone tell you that what you see with your own eyes isn't happening. Again, super far right. Oh, and just one more thing. I found this bit of information on the elections of 2024. Labour celebrates victories but loses ground in urban and heavily Muslim areas. Party did better in places it had lost since 2016, but one commentator called it progress at a price. So Labour doesn't actually care about the British people because they just care about the Muslim vote. It also explains why they're so pro-immigration in the first place, because it's all about bringing in huge swaths of people who will vote for them. They don't actually care about the Muslims themselves, they're just being used to bolster Labour support for the elections. So literally this entire thing is a sham. And here's the much needed context to the problem that Parliament seems to be ignoring. The streets are unsafe and the British people of all colours and creeds are beginning to notice why. A small breakdown of just 1 month of why British people are unhappy with mass immigration. July 4th, at the election, several Muslim MPs were elected to the House of Commons on the back of Free Palestine. July 11th, the new Labour government announced it would release 5,000 prisoners early in September, with most having served 40% of their sentence. July 15th, we learned London's Metropolitan Police had not solved a single petty crime, burglary, car theft, phone theft, in 3 years across 166 areas. This is absolutely true, by the way. And it's not just this police force that are this terrible. It's all of them. They're all terrible. July 17th, it was reported that a Jordanian refugee, Mustafa al-Mubaidan, who had assaulted a female police officer in Bournemouth, was spared community service on the grounds that he cannot speak English. So, I can get away with crimes if I don't speak English now? Is that how the law supposedly works in this country? July 18th, 2 asylum seekers, these two, who stole a Rolex worth £25,000 from a tourist, were spared jail. That's more than a year's worth of money on minimum wage, by the way. July 18th, that same day, mass rioting in minority communities broke out in Hare Hills, which is in Leeds, after social services took 4 Romani children into social care. I have a very, very, very close source on that one, but I won't say any more. July 18th, rioting broke out in East London's Bangladeshi community following political unrest in Bangladesh, with rocks thrown at police officers and cars smashed in communities that are majority Muslim. July 23rd, it was announced that Anjem Choudary, Britain's most famous Islamist, was to be sentenced for directing Islamic terror on Britain's streets. It's taken them decades to stop this man, and he's converted so many people to extremism as the government did absolutely nothing to stop him. So a lot of the problems we have on our streets, but also in the world, are as a direct result of the British state's inability to arrest this man and break up his organisation. July 23rd, a British Army officer was repeatedly stabbed outside his home by Anthony Essen, a Nigerian immigrant. July 26th, protests broke out after footage emerged of Greater Manchester Police taking action against these two at Manchester Airport, who had severely assaulted armed officers. July 27th, 6 arrests were made after a drive-by shooting in the town of Watford. July 29th, reports emerged that a man had been stabbed to death with 2 others injured following a knife fight in a park in East London. July 29th, Southport, there was a mass stabbing and murder of 3 children. He was a second-generation immigrant, and the state still hasn't said why he did it, but it's no wonder why people are putting 2 and 2 together. July 30th, a mass brawl involving machetes erupted on the streets of Southend. July 30th, it was reported that a homeless Kurdish migrant had pushed a man into the tracks at a London Underground station after feeling disrespected. July 30th, it was reported that another 3,000 migrants had entered Britain illegally on small boats since Labour took power less than a month ago, taking the total number of crossings by mainly young male migrants from countries like these places to around 130,000. And it's not just about the violence, mind Starmer. The British working class thinks that they're coming here and they're taking our jobs, our pensions, our social housing, our benefits. You cannot get a doctor's appointment because the NHS is overrun. And it's also because the National Socialist Health Service is racist. They have racial and sexual quotas. They are judging people by the colour of their skin or what kind of genitalia they have. Also, you have this muppet from Scotland. You Suffer Under Me calls on Starmer to send in the army, and he wants the army to go into Northern Ireland. I think the Republic of Ireland needs to go. No, you don't. No, you don't. This man is literally calling for a jihad against the Irish people, and you're trying to pretend that people like him are not trying to sow division in our country. If you send in the army into Northern Ireland, you're gonna have another guerrilla war on your hands. Do not send in the army. Not even into England. The solution to the violence is to cut the racist woke nonsense and start listening. So, to my fellow countrymen of all colours and creeds, what we are seeing across this country right now are numerous battles between the British people themselves and a fascist government enabling this. These are the Storm Wars. All the so-called parties in this country are all establishment cronies. Even Farage is a member of the establishment, even if he's not a popular one. The Labour-mites, the Conservatives, the Fibtard Democrats and the Red-Green Divs. They're all the same. Our votes are a sham. We do not have a legitimate political system in this country. And the simple solution would be for our SS Sturmbannführer to simply come out and say, "We apologise for our poor handling of this situation, for failing the British people for decades, and for implementing a 2-tier system that has enabled criminals to practically rule the streets of this country. We acknowledge your legitimate concerns, and we are now going to implement a proper system of law and order which treats everybody equally. We will listen to the people who have economic, social and political concerns about immigration. Recognise that we need to stop encouraging these people from coming over here and work to solve the issue. We will no longer police social media, nor will we shame you for waving an English flag. We are going to abolish the racial and sexual quotas we have set up in our government. We will abolish the BBC, and we will allow proper freedom of the press. We are sorry for what we have done, and we will make it right. If he said that, the riots will be stopping overnight. Of course, I'm not going to hold my breath. But if he's not willing to do that, then I think Starmer should resign. Another election should be called because Labour have just lost most of their voter base. And if an election does happen, here's one thing we can all do, regardless of your beliefs. Next time there's an election, we need to spoil our ballots. Take out your ballot papers, scribble out all the boxes, and write next to them, "No to nonces." Say no to the nonces. And when millions of ballot papers come back, and the establishment realises that the majority of the people are united in their opposition to them, we will have given them the biggest V for victory they've ever seen. At that point, they may start to listen to the people they've trodden on for years, and a new legitimate movement or two can emerge that are not puppets of the establishment. I think this week has shown us that we need to give serious consideration to setting up local private police forces, local laws, local judges, and local communities. We need to abolish the state police and stop obeying the totalitarian morons in Westminster. And I know that might seem like a radical alternative, but if Parliament is unwilling to listen to the people, it is something we seriously need to consider. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.